Here we go,
Hi
we're
there.
live.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronan Nazarene Talks. I'm Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films.
I'm Nazarene Prod from Nazarene Prod.
And today we're going to return to Michael Powell directing and a Little Emmerich Pressburger from 1937 and 1939. These are two of the kind of lesser known Michael Powell films, I suppose, but they're both wonderful in their own special way.
Yeah, I've called it before The Archers because this was one was the film Michael Powell made. It was the film Michael Powell made. He had other producers with him, and it got his interest of the film industry. Because before this, he made Coda Quickies basically, and this was the one that got the interest of the film industry on him. And Spy and Black was the first time we worked with Emmerich Pressburger, and that cemented their relationship. So these are two early films that actually got them led to what we know as The Archers. So they are important films for what followed, but they're also good films in themselves. So I'm going to start with The Edge of the World, and then see, one of us is organized. I'm not organized. I didn't have that out, but I didn't really have to because I know you will have it out. So it's what's the
Yes.
bother? So Edge of the World is, well, we've got a view already. Wow. Edge of the World is is sort of documentary drama, and we've lost a viewer. So there we go. That's the problem with doing it live, is we got a viewer, we lost them. So Michael Powell was interested in the subject of these islands in Scotland where the people had the younger people had moved off the island because the way of life wasn't paying in the modern world, and without those young people, the communities couldn't survive. So he was interested in that subject, and he wanted to make a film about it. But he was interested in the late 20s about it, but it took him till the mid 30s before he actually got the money from independent producers to make a film. So it was a tight budget. They had to plan it all out carefully. So even though the film itself feels a docudrama, and it feels like it's caught a lot of life, they actually plan all this out and sort it out really to make sure it all worked, to create that sense of the environment, because they actually did have a lot of actors in it as well. They did a lot of background. All the background people were from the island, but the foreground actors were actors. So the story basically is of a community slowly coming apart, and there's a love story in between that as well. That's there to keep the people interested, but it's done in a nice way where it's not actually foregrounded as a romantic love story. It's much more a love story that's taking place along with the other stuff, and it's more complicated than the normal love story you get in these kind of stories. But mainly it's about the death of our community. That's what the film's about. And it's wonderful. It's just genuinely wonderful. It's amazing sights. Now, they didn't film the film on site of the island that was abandoned. They found another island that could be abandoned in the future, so they shot there instead. And the irony is, if you find out, is that island was never abandoned because the community stayed. So, but that's the film. It's about the islands around Scotland being abandoned.
Yeah, it's almost like films about the death of the Old West. It's about the death of a way of life. And it's just beautifully done. Again, as you say, it features kind of two characters, two sets of family members, and obviously there's disputes between the two. One more traditional and one wants to kind of move on and progress. And obviously there's a love story, including unwedded goings on. I mean, it's pretty shocking. Featuring a very young Niall McGuinness, almost hard to believe it's the same actor because you're just never used to seeing him that young. and the wonderful John Laurie.
The funny
Who we
thing
all
is,
love.
I did now I'm getting this double bill this week because I had this film and I watched Night of the Demon, and I wasn't even trying to do a double bill. I was just like, oh yeah, he's in this one too, and you see 20 years pass over a few days in someone's face.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the kind of contradictions to Michael Powell. He's this almost perfect English gentleman in the way he talks and whatever, but he did absolutely love the Scottish Highlands. It was a way of him to go and clear his head between films. He just loved the geography and the barrenness of it. And again, it's one of the many kind of contradictions within Powell.
Yeah, the thing with Michael Powell was, if he's going to shoot a film on location, he would walk everywhere to find the locations and find the places to go. So his poor production designers had to go and walk with him, and his DPs, and if you didn't like to walk, you should not be in a Michael Powell film, because he loved to go for walks. So
yeah, I mean, this set is absolutely brilliant with BFI, as BFI usually does. They are pretty underrated as far as their extras, because you do get whole movies of Powell and his pals walking about, including their dog, who obviously loves dogs. And he goes back with John Laurie 20 years later or so to the island, and they kind of reunite with some of the people that were actually in the original film. So it's a wonderful package.
It's more like 40 years later.
Picking up. Yeah, it's longer than that.
Yeah, I was thinking 20, and that's more 40.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the actors had died at that point.
Yeah.
And John Laurie died a few years after this documentary. Yeah. And the funny thing is, the older guy, the guy playing the really old guy, was the one that outlasted most of them. I think he was on for ages. He lasted forever. Almost outlasted them. But if you look at the age he was when he died, it was like he was in his 90s when he died. It was like, this guy had a long life.
Yeah. But the locations are spectacular and dangerous. There is real danger. It's mostly told in flashback, and there's kind of a wonderful little monument to somebody who went over, and then we obviously see in flashback how that happened. But there is real danger, and you feel the real danger of the location and of the place.
Yeah, because I mean, they had John Laurie climbing down the side of a mountain with a rope for lots of scenes. There's a sequence where they have to climb the side of a mountain in a race to the top to solve an argument where someone doesn't make it, and they did it for real. It's a pretty scary sequence. It's like I wouldn't have done it. It'd be like, sod off, I'm not doing that. There's no way you have brought me up those mountains.
I mean, it's not one of those, they're trying to do a dangerous thing, and you can tell, there's like lots of mat work around it, and you can kind of tell they're not that far, but this is genuinely hair-raising.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I saw anything like that was in Rapa Nui, the Kevin Reynolds film from the 90s, where they went to Easter Island and shot sequencing up and down mountains, and it's like, that was the only time I saw something is like, what are they doing? Type of level of, the actors must have been wondering what the hell they'd signed up for.
Yeah, there's also wonderful sheep action.
Yes, including the sheep stunt.
Sheep work. Yes,
sheep stuntage. There's a sheep inside a mountain. They have to pull him back up, and he's on John Laurie's shoulders as he gets pulled back up, and it's pretty hair-raising. That actually shows how scary it is to deal with sheep in a place with lots of mountains.
Yeah, it also links both films because there's some good sheep work in The Spy in Black as well, but we'll get to that. It kind of shows, again, people who are used to living with nature, and obviously the relationship with nature is another Michael Powell through line in his films as well, and living in a dangerous environment. It's almost, that reminded me of kind of videos of Fred Dibnah, climbing up chimneys with like no ropes and stuff like that. Just, you're used to that danger and you don't even think about it.
Yeah, I mean, most filmmakers when they do mountain climbing tend to be, fake as hell. It's there to actually show you like stunts and things rather than how hard it is to climb a mountain in the first place. Especially when you're doing it like as they do it in some of this, it's like free solo stuff. You don't actually have any ropes. They're climbing it. They're not having like anything to hold on to apart from the rock. That's kind of very dangerous. Are you there? Have we lost you? Oh, we seem to have a problem here. Give me a second. There we go.
Sorry.
Right, there you go. That's fine. I thought you were doing
My
model work.
collapsed.
Your Bristonian stare.
Sadly not.
No. I thought you were writing down notes from a future book. My study of sheep and film.
Yes. No. My
No.
top 10 sheep performances.
Yep. Yeah. So, where were we? We're talking about the dangers of that life. Yeah. And the interesting thing was, you can't really, apart from John Laurie, who I recognised, you can't really. I mean, Neil McGuinness. He doesn't look the same as you see him in most other movies, because I've used to see him a bit older. So he could be mistaken for a non-actor in the sense of he looks the part of the life. Even John Laurie, who I recognised, still looks like he belongs in Ireland. And he's an actor who's in a lot of Powell Pressburger films. They obviously liked him and put him in. He's in Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, and quite a lot of these actors float through other films by Powell Pressburger as they go. They did like reusing actors and bring them back for certain things. But they integrate the background players and the foreground players really well.
Yeah. And the compositions and obviously the use of the rocks and the cliffs is spectacular, and it's beautifully shot, and obviously doing location work, especially in those kind of conditions, doesn't necessarily lend itself to beautifully shot cinematography, but I mean this one is spectacular stuff.
Yeah, you're feeling Powell had walked around. He really wanted to do this right, and he'd probably planned it really well, and he knew where he was going for certain shots and how everything would cut together. So you're feeling this is a much more prepared film than the still was trying to suggest. Like the still was trying to suggest a kind of way of life and some sort of randomness, but the actual making of it was much more clear, and you got a sense of a life, but you didn't realize how much control there actually was over the filmmaking just by the way that he was shooting it.
Yeah, I mean, you can also kind of see this as almost a double bill of I know where I'm going, in the sense of kind of the mythic and almost fairy tale element of it, just with, that little plaque or gravestone, if you like, at the side of the cliff.
Yeah, no, it does link, but also links to something. The kind of feeling of it does link to like Colonel Blimp as well, the sense of a life ending, a way of life ending, and
yeah.
I mean, certain things float through it. Even Peeping Tom, it's a life of a family ending in the sense of the son's going crazy because of his father, but it's that kind of way of life of the crazy filmmaking thing has ended with him. Although in that case, it should have ended. So
yeah, and of course, Michael Powell gives a moving performance.
Oh yeah, as a token tourist at the beginning, yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing. He casts himself as the obnoxious get to no one likes, which really shows a sense of humor.
And obviously, we all know his casting for Peeping Tom as well.
Yeah. I don't think he minds casting himself as a villain or a person you shouldn't like very much. He's okay for that.
But again, there's perhaps no. Sorry,
I'll let you go.
No, I was just going to say perhaps there's not, that much to talk about it. But again, it's just full of atmosphere and authenticity, and also reality, especially when it comes to the kind of more dramatic scenes in the film.
Well, the dramatic scenes are like underplayed nicely, in a sense of you get the romance, and then you get the drama because her brother and this, who's the more modern person, gets into an argument with her future husband, which causes the big claim upside the rock, where the brother dies, and he's the guy who sees the future. And they're basically trying to stop the future, and he dies, but they still can't stop the future. So there is a kind of dramatic sense of, foreshadowing of what they're about. So it's just, it doesn't bang you over the head with things. It's just like you're meant to be intelligent enough to figure it out yourself what's going on. And then she can't, even though she's still in love with him, she can't see him because her father blames him for the whole thing, even though it was the father's fault for going along with it in the first place when they told him to stop it. But he thought he could make a show of how great his son was.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the romance thing doesn't go the way you expect, because normally they would be like, they'd fight against everything, but they just kind of, he just moves off the island. Her future husband or fiance, he just moves off the island because he realizes he can blame everybody for the death. And because at that point, they've done the dirty business and she's pregnant and he doesn't know it. And again, that would be easily played for melodrama, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's played for, it's like, this is life, this is the way life goes. Sometimes, eventually he comes back and has to save the baby's life. Again, which could be played for horrible melodrama. But it's not. It's like, this is life, this is how hard life is. You have to, you just deal with it, really. It's just, that's the way things are. And it's about watching them survive, and you realize how hard the life is, rather than, and how ingrained some of the beliefs are, because they've been going for hundreds of years, and just slowly showing them evolve over time. So everything's done in a much more subtle manner than most melodramas would go for. It's like the melodrama is there to keep people interested, but it's done in a very realistic way that reminds you of life, rather than some film try to hook you in with some outrageous plot twist.
Yeah, and it's quite beautiful and haunting at the start when, again, this comes back to the island and he kind of sees the ghosts of people walking by him when he's standing next to the old house.
Yeah,
it's quite subtly done.
Yeah, the sense of, this is a life past. This is a life he probably misses now. But he was one of the people that end up moving away first.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, just the atmosphere is wonderful. That's what I liked of the film, which is the atmosphere of it. Just like this sense of ghostiness of something that once was. And it just goes through the film. You sense the doom, because they show the beginning where there's no one left, and then they go back to show what happened. There's a sense of doom throughout the film, a sense of, okay, this is going bad, the situation is going to go bad. But they don't push it the way they did. They've been doing a more mainstream film where all these horrible things are going to happen. It's just, no, this is life. There's not enough young people. They can't support themselves. It's just the way it goes. And actually moving people off the island is done without melodrama. It's done with a sense of, it's inevitable. Like, what do you do with the pets? You drown them because they can't afford them when you go to the land.
It's pretty brutal for a dog lover that Powell is.
I know, but that's the thing, is it shows you the kind of darker side of the island as well. The practical side. It's like, I'm really glad the film did that, to show you what the reality was for them. And again, you see the two, even though the child's born out of wedlock, both sides of the family dote on the child. The two grandfathers are all over the child all the time. You get some musical sequences showing them dancing as they just, because it's a festival, so you get a sense of life in the town, the life in what people are in this town and this island.
Yeah, because it's what that child could represent. You know, it could represent a future for them on the island. Personally, if they were looking at it realistically, they would drown the child in the sea because children cost more to look after than dogs do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Just saying.
For people who like children, we've just lost subscribers.
Yes.
It's like,
But again, it's that mix of the reality, but also the beginnings of the expressionism that would come into obviously Pill films later.
Yeah, it's mixed in a way that's not forced though. It's like he's figuring it out. And the thing is, when you notice when he goes forward and starts working with Pressburger, the dramatic side becomes much better. But the pictorial side that Pill's expressing here is strong as well. It's like you can see what Pill brought to the partnership in this one. And you also see why this got him a contract with the main studios. It's like, because before that he was in a much lower level. He wasn't really viewed as a higher level director. This is the one that got people focused on him. And it won awards in America, and it got everyone interested. Who is this guy? Because he actually mentioned me a film he was passionate about, and he had a point of view on, and it showed you what his potential was. Even though it wasn't commercial, wasn't really that commercial.
No, I mean, it's concise, it's tight, it's one of these shorter films, 70 odd minutes, but there's not a wasted frame, even when he is just looking at the rocks and cliffs. So it's really tight, really economical, and really rather good.
Yeah, no, I don't think you could make it longer than it is, because I mean, there's only so much that is there. Otherwise, you'd start to go into the weirdly obscure things that would not interest people. So he knew exactly what he needed to show and what he could get away with not showing. Really.
Yeah, you would just add subplots and stuff like that don't actually need to be added.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's why I really like it, is the sense of it is so spare and it is to the point, and just the atmosphere of it. But the plot keeps moving forward at a steady pace without you noticing the plot too much. Because I mean, Spy in Black's much more plotty than this one is. But I like the looseness of this one because it wasn't that loose. It was actually fairly tightly planned as well. It's just you don't notice the joins at all.
Yeah, I mean, if it was 90 odd minutes, then perhaps you might not like it as much.
Yeah, I think you would have had things that would maybe explain stuff rather than having sequences of atmosphere. Like there's a section, 5-minute section, where they're showing the village in the town and showing them going to church and things like that, and the old woman sitting out in front of her home, which doesn't add to the plot at all, but tells you everything you need to know about the town and the island and the old traditions and what people mean to each other. So it's really important, but it's not a plot thing, but it's something you really need. So, yeah.
So it's a wonderful film, even though it's kind of underrated and underseen.
Yeah, it doesn't have the showy elements of some of the other films. It's not the Red Shoes where it's got a look at me kind of quality to it. This is much more of a quieter film.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else we can say about this film?
No, I mean, it's as you say, it's more kind of atmosphere and scenery and a feel rather than all these plot points.
Yep.
It's just wonderful.
Yep.
And the BFI Blu-ray is not expensive, so if you can find it.
No, I've had it for ages. I've been looking for an excuse to watch it for a while.
Me too. So.
Really?
Because I think I saw it years ago on BBC Two, but it has
me too.
Probably decades, to be fair.
Thing is, I can vaguely remember bits of it, and for some reason I thought I hadn't seen it. Then when I watched the film, so I have seen it. It's just it's been so long. It's almost like I hadn't seen it because it'd been like I must have been a teenager when I saw it or something like that, and so much of it was gone.
Yeah.
So definitely want to see.
Oh yeah, definitely worth checking.
Yeah. So now we're going to Roden's, one of the films mentioned repeatedly as we've done this series as an underrated film, So pass over to him to explain Spy in Black.
Spy in Black, which, as you said, is the first kind of collaboration, but before there were the Archers. I do have it in French Blu-ray, which isn't really that much better than the print, but interestingly, this Blu-ray is a BFI print, so I'm not sure why BFI haven't released it in Blu-ray. Obviously, they released Whenever Aircraft is Missing in a very nice package, so it's about time they released the Spy in Black. This is set in 1917, made in 1939, and we're on, I was going to say we're on the side of the Germans, but we're on the side of the Germans. It's about a German plot to sink the British fleet. So Conrad Veidt is a U-boat captain who's going to go on shore using the dastardly ploy of having a motorbike, because nobody would expect a German spy with a motorbike.
A Michael Pell thing. He loves motorbikes.
Yes. And he is going to meet a German operative, and together with the help of a crooked British naval officer, he's going to get the plans and they're going to sink the British fleet, but not necessarily everything goes according to plan.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, this plot could be a plot of a Hitchcock film, because in some ways it was like Saboteur, Sabotage, those kind of films. Yeah. Hitchcock moving it over to America. But it's much more character-based than... There's a plot there, but it's much more about finding out about the Conrad Veidt character, who he is and what he is, and then watching the situation develop.
Yeah.
So there is suspense, but it's not really it's not the only engine this film has.
No, I mean, obviously I'm biased because I absolutely love Conrad Veidt, and Maurice Goring is his second in command, who's excellent as always. I mean, objectively, this isn't amongst their classics, but for me, this is their best straight war film, if you like. But because of Pressburger's writing, and obviously my bias for Veidt, I actually want him to succeed. And I feel bad when he doesn't.
So you want the entire British fleet destroyed in World
War
I?
I mean, I'm sure they can build another one. I mean, it's heartbreaking, that moment when it clicks that he's been duped, and but it's clever because it also dupes the audience in certain places as well. It's just wonderfully done. But again, I prefer this to Matter of Life and Death, even though Matter of Life and Death is a masterpiece and objectively a better film than this. But I would prefer, The Spy in Black's higher in my favourites.
We all like stuff. There are certain films that we just adore that maybe other people don't like as much.
Yeah, I mean, in some regards, it is a kind of meat and potatoes little thriller, but I just think there's little elements like the crew on the boat that Veidt eventually ends up on. The relationship between the captain and the engineer is wonderful. The self-importance of the guy who looks after the island and wants everybody to switch their lights out. Valerie Hobson as the person who Conrad Veidt thinks is the spy. I don't think Valerie Hobson's ever been better. She's just fantastic with a mix of strength and when she's basically telling Conrad Veidt to go to your bed. It's everybody's just wonderful in it.
You've got what's his name? The guy who plays the Sebastian Shaw is the British guy who's selling out the British fleet, who's an alcoholic. He's terrific. You Star Wars fans might know him as the old Darth Vader.
Yes, when his helmet gets popped off.
Yep, for 2 minutes.
Yes.
But that's the thing. He actually regarded himself during this era of filmmaking as a pretty poor actor. They get better later on. So, but But he's actually good in this one because he's playing a part. He's playing a person acting a part as well. So it's like there's layers of the performance. It's not just a very simplistic one thing.
Yeah, and I love the relationship between him and Veidt, because obviously Veidt, wants his help, but he also looks down on him for he's going to betray his country to sink his own fleet. So it's just a lovely little
he's an
relationship
alcoholic.
between the two.
He's pathetic. He's doing it for the money. And of course, you realise that's not the case at all. I mean, it's... We're going to spoil it. Someone's 100 years old now at this point.
Yeah.
We're about a decade and a half shy of 100 years by this point, so I think we can
I think there's a date you can go by that you're allowed to talk about the elements of the film. So.
Yeah.
But even the start of the film, there's lovely little Powell and Pressburger things, like the original school teacher gets a lift from this old lady who you don't, it's an old lady, there's no threat there, but then there is actually a threat.
Because she's a German scumbag spy.
Old ladies can be Germans too.
Yeah. I liked how they threw her off the side of the mountain, just like people died in the Edge of the World.
Yeah.
Michael Powell loves throwing people off cliffs. Another Powellism.
Yeah, and of course the Old Man of Hoy gets a mention, and Scapa Flow, and so again we're in the Highlands again.
Yeah, Michael Powell's in his element, away from the studio in the Highlands, with some weird character actors. He's good.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's pretty much, this was about 2 years after Edge of the World, and obviously when this was an assignment, they assigned Pressburger to write it, and then they gave it to Michael Powell, because they'd seen Edge of the World, and they probably was like, okay. Everyone else would be like, oh god, I have to go out there. He'd be like, oh great, I got to go out there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's obviously, it was like, okay, this is the one guy we can send out that we do this film that will actually enjoy it.
Yeah. Because obviously you've got Contraband, you've got 49th Parallel, you've got One of Our Aircraft is Missing. But as I say, I love The Spy in Black out of those kind of wee group of straight kind of Powell and Pressburger war films.
There's also some really terrific ones.
Yeah.
So, because that's the thing. A lot of their big films came during the war. As entertainments for the war. They always managed to keep it interesting and keep it different from the normal warfare. So they actually did provide interesting films even during that time. So when this film was made just before World War II started, I think it was released like weeks before war was declared. So it was a film about a German villain just before war was announced for Germany. Yes.
But again, at the start we see the effect of the war in Germany when Veidt and Goring go back, and they're looking forward to a slap-up meal because they've had 16 days in their U-boat, and of course there's nothing left. It's just like, so when Veidt goes to his contact and she's got butter, it's just like, oh my god,
wow.
Butter. It's just...
he takes some butter to his U-boat as well.
Yeah.
Look, I've got some butter.
Yeah. So again, the idea of, Germans suffered as well, and obviously they'd get into trouble with Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, kind of showing the other side as well.
It's that thing where, because Pressburger came from Germany, he understood the world both of Britain and Germany, so he could give you a balanced view of it. It wasn't just black and white. It was like, politically, the Germans were awful, but realistically, in people's lives, they were good and bad, really.
Yeah, because that's what worked as a Hungarian. You can see Britain and Britishness from the outside as well.
Yeah.
As well as obviously having Powell, again, the quintessential English gentleman, but obviously had these little quirks about his personality as well. And together they just obviously meshed. Well, obviously they meshed.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is, Pressburger could see the absurd side of British culture as well, the absurdities of some of their habits. I mean, if you look at the early duel bit in like David Colonel Blimp, they're playing on the absurdity of both sides' traditions, and it's just how insane it actually all is. It's like both these sides are nuts. There's not one's good and one's bad. They're both nuts.
Yeah, and you have to play fair in war, and of course that's the thing that Colonel Blimp just can't understand.
Yeah.
The Nazis doing dirty things and bad things. It's just not cricket.
Yeah. In this film, Wright has his own code, but it's a much darker code than Colonel Blimp ever. Thing is, he's about the mission, even though he's a human being and he has flaws and desires. He's still about the mission. He thinks he needs to do the mission to help his country through a bad period. So he's a patriot. Really.
Yeah, and there's obviously there's a wonderful moment which kind of shows perhaps the difference between World War I and World War II. The fact when he takes over the boat and says, nobody make any noise, and then a baby makes the noise, and he says, with one exception, and obviously perhaps in World War II, obviously babies didn't really matter. So that's a nice touch. And then at the end, there is kind of mutual respect between the captain of the boat and Veidt, who wants to go down with the boat. So there's just little of those wonderful touches that perhaps you wouldn't get in other standard kind of war films of the time.
Yeah, plus Veidt has respect for the Shaw character once he realizes he's duped him, and the Clive Hobson characters they were good at their jobs. There was a respect there, they did their job just like I do my job. It's like a professional courtesy element to it. It's like, okay, I can respect that you actually did what you were supposed to do here. Like, it's nothing personal. It's just like, you're doing your job, I'm doing my job. There's none of this melodrama, like, I hate you or something like that. It's just like, no, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's the professionals.
Yeah, and the wonderful close-up of Veidt behind the door when he kind of realizes what's been going on. Almost too close a close-up, but it's just so good.
Yeah, he's been duped. And that's the thing, is you don't quite see that one coming, because you're following her and you actually think, because you never see her. Because by the time you see her, Valerie Hobson, you assume that's a spy that they brought along, and until you realize, no, it's not. It's one of the British spies, but you don't notice that until they tell you. You assume she's a villain.
Yeah, because again, she's just so good.
Yeah,
and I love how
you find out she's Sebastian Shaw's wife.
Yeah,
they had to bring in someone who could speak German really quickly, and she's the only person they knew. So it was like, okay, you have to go in and do this so we can sink these German subs.
Yeah, and I love the fact that obviously the boat's sunk by his own crew, and then when he gets on the boat, he takes the guise of a minister, and it's almost like he's got this big cape, so he's almost a Dracula figure when he gets on the boat, because he's obviously got that striking look.
Yeah. You can't take expressions about that bad boy.
Yeah. But again, just love that irony that he's sunk by his own crew and he's desperately going, I'm here. And it's like...
Yeah, and then his crew gets sunk as well. It's like, it doesn't go well for him.
So it's a very upsetting ending. Much happier if the British being sunk. So that's just...
Oh my God, the Germans lost. Wow.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of it takes place on the island. I mean, the last third takes place on that ship. But each time, Pearl and Pressburger sit you down in the location for a while, and it's like the interaction between the people, creating the suspense and creating the interest, rather than doing what Hitchcock would do, which was be always building up suspense and having that a barometer of the scenes, where in this one it's much more suspense is there, we've set it up, now let's watch the people interact a little bit and see what they're about, and we know the mechanics are there, we can rely on that, but that's not exactly what it's about.
Yeah, and the couple who are always trying to get Valerie Hobson to come and have dinner with them, and also the minister that turns up, who's the fiance of supposedly the school teacher, who adds a bit of humour, but it's not like buffoonery or anything. It's just a little bit of humour.
Yeah, it's
the moment when
course-
he's introduced to Veidt, because Veidt literally comes out of the shadows at him. So again, it's just like,
yeah.
it's just all wonderfully shot as well.
Yeah. So, plus, it's a sense of humor. I mean, it knows exactly what it's doing. I mean, it understands the wonderful absurdity of biking around the island with his motorbike and
Yes.
a lot of the kind of who goes there stuff as well.
Yeah.
And just the kind of pompousness of the people on the island, because they have an important job. They're helping deal with the fleet, and it's like, yeah, but your job itself isn't that important. It's just
the warden who's single-handedly,
winning the
preventing
war.
the island being overtaken by Germans.
Yeah. So you get a lot of pompousness. The minister and his wife, who are a bit too over keen to show how much influence they have over the town. Like, they're scared of losing their power over the town in any way. They have to be in everybody's business. And it's like, a lot of films wouldn't have time for that. They wouldn't care about that stuff. And it's like, no, it's kind of important to show the setting they're in. It sets you against the kind of much colder reality that it's come through Veidt's character, who's much more focused on his mission.
And obviously, if he's going to die, he wants to die with his uniform on.
Yep. Because that kind of pride he has in who he is and what he's done. Because he's like a career Navy guy. He's not just in for the war and then he needs to back out. He's there for good. Like, you sense he was there before the war started.
Yeah.
Really. He was like an experienced skipper before the war started. So it's like he's always been there. He's just if he has to go down the mission, he goes down the mission.
Yeah, and you immediately get the sense when he's introduced that he's good at it.
Yeah.
That he's very good at it. So
yeah, that's his identity. He's the great submarine captain. That's what he does. He's like the expert, really.
And of course, Veidt is immediately believable.
Yep. And the thing is,
it's not like Rock Hudson. It's not like Rock Hudson as a submarine captain.
Yeah. The thing is, you like him even though he's a German. He's like, yeah, you put all those characteristics, and if he was on your side, you'd want him to succeed. It's not like it's just because he's the enemy, you want him to fail, but he's a lot of characteristics that you would want your soldiers to have, which is he's loyal to his crew. He wants his crew to do well. He's loyal to his mission, his country. It's like he's got all the attributes you'd want, but he's on the enemy side.
Yeah, he's got charisma, but he's also got steely eyes and his mission. And as you say, he cares about his men. He cares about his men so much that he'll give them butter.
I know.
Can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, that's real caring. That's top level. You know. Yeah. Especially during the war. I mean, imagine what it would like if you've got them eggs as well. I mean, you would have been ecstatic.
Should have brought a sheep back.
Yeah, you your sheep.
Yeah, Conrad Veidt does a wonderful impersonation of a sheep.
Yes. So this video should be called Sheep Appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, one day, well, hopefully we'll get it in Blu-ray so we can look at those sheep in more detail.
That sounds so bad.
They give gutsy performances just like they did in Edge of the World. So.
Yes.
Forget Michael Powell, it's really a sheep double bill.
Yes. Yeah, I was starting to realise that the sheep have overtaken the podcast. That's what
Michael Powell understands the importance of nature within the world and man's relationship with nature.
Maybe I think he might think you're overemphasising the sheep.
Perhaps.
Maybe the submarines are a bit more important. It's quite fun to see the old boats, because which were modern boats at the time, but they were kind of old because they were the kind of boats that were sent out to the far end of the world and were like, so even at that time they were kind of beat up a little bit, so you get to see these old boats going from island to island, and it's really fun to see the kind of old style boats that were in the 30s and 40s that are no longer in use, and they look cold as hell. There's like I bet they were freezing making that. What's that?
Or at the bottom of the ocean somewhere.
Probably. Well, one of them was.
Yes.
Right.
I also love the little detail about, when they opened the bag to go up onto the island where he's disguised, it's actually his own coat, and they've replaced the label, so that's a nice touch as well.
Yes.
Which probably means he broke into his locker or broke into his home and took his suit out, but never mind.
Yeah.
It's a small price to pay.
Yeah. He's a proud man. Proud of his uniform.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't talked that much about the plot because the plot is less important than the characters, really. I mean, the plot works. There's good mechanisms, but you're really there for the interactions more than the actual plot mechanics. They do explain it all, but it's the least interesting part of the film, really.
Yeah, but it's another film that is well paced. It's economical. It still gives you, as you say, enough time for the characters to develop and get to know them and get to root for them one way or another. But also, it paces on with the story very well.
Yeah. So, I don't have that much more to say about Spy in Black because I was much more into Edge of the World.
Again, I can understand why people give Spy in Black like 3 stars or whatever. But for me, it's one of my favourites. Granted, that is because of Conrad Veidt, but again, I just love the wee little plot surprises that we as the audience kind of learn at the same time as characters learn. We're not ahead of the characters. Well, we are at some point, but
I wouldn't understand 3 stars. I'd understand 4 stars, and it's not my favourite Paul Pressburger, but it's obviously a really well made film. If you're hearing 3 stars, it means you're pretty stupid.
Yeah, I think that's what it kind of averages, like 3 or 3.5.
That's weird. It's like, really? Some people.
I mean, again, I get it. If you watch A Matter of Life and Death and The Red Shoes, and then you watch Spy in Black, perhaps you're disappointed. But I mean, you shouldn't really be.
That's just people who should think more. I'm not calling them thick, but I'm implying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a 4-star film. It's really well made. It's really well done, and there's lots of delightful things in it. And it is the start of something even greater. I mean, I liked it, but I think I preferred, the one about the bomber.
One of our aircraft is missing.
No, the bomber, the bomb diffuser.
Oh, sorry, the small back room.
Yeah, I preferred that one to this, really. And for some reason, I always get these two mixed up for the titles. I don't know why, I just do. They always seem to be connected in some way to my head.
Of course, another... Sorry.
No, I'm nothing really. I'm just blabbering.
No, I was just going to say there's another nice touch because Deutschland über alles is actually mixed into the opening title music, which is a really nice little touch.
Yeah.
And it's a still frame of Veidt behind the door, almost again, very vampiric.
Yeah.
But it's a nice touch to put the German national anthem in. And a little bit in the title music.
Well, Pill has always a sense of humour, so it kind of it does help. There is some humour with him and Pressburger. I think there are some private jokes in there that we only get some of. We only understand the bits of.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're only used to the Technicolor Michael Powell, you should really give these black and white films a go.
Yeah.
Because most of them are excellent.
Yes. And they're lower budget, so they're not the epic films like Red Shoes or films like that. But they're more modestly budgeted because they've obviously been put together for the domestic audience during the war. But that gives them freedom to do some interesting things that they might not have a space for, and one of the more epic films. So they're definitely worth seeing.
Absolutely.
So I think that's us then. I think we've done our another two Pill Pressburger. We're getting through them now. I mean, it's been a while since we've done these. We've obviously had a few months off for various reasons, but we're getting back into the swing of things. We don't have the others for death matches this time. It's just two boring buggers from Scotland.
Yes.
Talking about films set in Scotland.
Yes, but they're certainly not boring films set in Scotland.
No. Yeah. That's just boring people talking about them.
Yes.
Yep.
Let's make that
So
clear.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes. Farewell.
Adios. And remember, pay attention to the sheep. The sheep are important.
Yes, without sheep, where would we be?